Hello, everybody. Going to work on some of the Kickstarter incentive sketches. Today it's going to be a Deena piece, and typically I'll draw sort of on sketch paper or something and then lightbox it, but I'm going to go ahead and, since this is a sketch piece, to just go ahead and really just sketch directly onto the paper. Good old-fashioned number 2 pencil. This could be Deena. I had this kind of idea of playing off of the sort of femme fatale kind of vibe. The old noir cliche. Which honestly, I mean, Deena kind of does fit in her own unique way. This would be a shot of her in bed with a gun. Suspicious. Suspicious of what? Noise outside of one of many enemies she's made over the years. As a character, I mean, Deena's made a lot of mistakes in her life, but at the same time, she is living under extraordinary circumstances. Something Brian delves into in the 20th anniversary graphic novel, which, believe me, is coming out. Just going over some of the lettering proofs yesterday. So the temptation when I have to do a bunch of these sketches is to just do like a kind of a headshot, something really simple. I'm gonna challenge myself to keep it a little more interesting this time around. Not just for you guys, but also for me. Like at first, doing a bunch of head sketches. Oh, that'll be easy. But after a while, the repetition gets to me, you know. The danger is creating something so unique each time, and it becomes a little more too work intensive, you know, which is why often for these sketches you just do a bunch of like head sketches and stuff. Yeah, so I want to keep it interesting for me, but also, you know, make sure I don't fall into a trap of anything too complicated, you know. I sort of imagine Deena sleeping with a gun under her pillow, or at very least, just next to her. Gotta be careful not to dig too much into the paper here with my pencil and sketching, so that when I erase this, there's not a bunch of gouges in there, in the paper, which is one of the reasons why I typically will draw this separately on a piece of paper and lightbox it. But again, this is a sketch, so I mean, half of the fun of getting a sketch, I guess, is seeing some of the pencil lines and how the creator makes it, you know. I always try and find a good balance between, you know, when the time is right, when to make a character, quote, sexy, when to have something, you know, there's such various degrees of that, from what I like, which is typically pretty simple like this, to, you know, she's just, for some reason, in lingerie. I have nothing against it, I just have trouble justifying it, you know, because I really truly believe there's a time and place for everything, including TNA comics, or, you know, overly sexualized stuff. Like, if it's meant to be, so if it's all about sex, it's all about sex, you know. But that's just not every time, every place. So I think Deena's cute and sexy, so we'll show a little of that, but not be overboard. Probably just should do at least one really nice sexy piece of Deena, because whenever we do see her nude in the comics, it's always been under duress, like getting her heart pulled out in space and stuff like that. Maybe she needs a nice moment. Walker's had some nice love scenes with his girlfriends and that kind of thing. But I guess also Deena, just, she's a person who struggles in a different way than Walker, so she doesn't seem to have the best relationships. She did have to murder one of her boyfriends once. I guess I'm saying is, Deena deserves happiness. Why can't we give it to her? That's the wrong expression. I get asked all the time about, like, who's my favorite Powers character to draw. To draw, it's definitely Walker. He's just easy. Character-wise, I mean, Deena's probably my favorite of the two, even though I personally identify with Walker quite a bit, especially after this last graphic novel. Well, it's not the last one. I was saying that for a while because I felt like we were really retiring the whole thing. I don't know what's going to happen now. But only because we've created a universe. Well, I can't talk too much about it now. We'll talk more about it when it's all done. But what was I saying? I don't remember. Oh, I identify with Walker partially because of his memory issues. I've got a legendarily bad memory. I think some of it's depression. I don't know how scientific that is, but I think there's some correlation there between memory and depression. Anyway, Walker can't remember huge chunks of his life, and I've been finding as I've gotten older, kind of the same thing. I don't know why I tend to block things out, but I do. In fact, a good friend of mine, Mike Hawthorne, was telling me this really fun story about how we were sharing an elevator and Sergio Aragonés comes in. And Mike is like whispering to me, like, oh my God, I'm such a fan. I don't know what to say. You know, one of those moments. We all have them. And as Sergio was leaving the elevator, I leaned out and I just yelled out to Sergio. I was like, he's a huge fan. Made me a little sad thinking about that because I just have grown up since then, and like I can't see myself just doing something like that now. You know, just sort of blabbing out something goofy to, in a joking way, kind of embarrass my friend. You know, I would never do that now, and in a way that's sad. You know, I just don't take this kind of initiative anymore or whatever. I don't know. It's less important to express myself to other people in some way, I guess. But anyway, he was telling me this story, and I believe that's the same con. I actually got stuck at the airport with Sergio and Stan Sakai, which was fucking awesome. I remember that. I don't remember a lot of the details. Granted, it's a really long time ago, but the incident with that memory that Hawthorne was sharing with me about Sergio, I don't remember at all. And I've had several times in my life, recently even, I don't know, people tell me about stuff, like, and to me it just sounds like a story that I wasn't there for. Like, I don't know what the fuck, I don't remember it. Meeting certain people, I don't remember at all. Like, not even like a vague memory. I'm like, I know you? So, you know, that's just a lot different than like a short-term memory of, you know, I can't remember somebody's name or something like that. Like, there are life events I just kind of don't remember. And anyway, Walker's going through a lot of that. But he has a real excuse of having lived all these different lifetimes to the point where he can't remember anymore because he's just so old. And his character is dealing with getting older too. So a combination of character getting older and realizing it in a comfortable way. Just like I am. I'm comfortable with getting older at my age. Partially, I guess, because I'm in relatively decent health. So maybe that makes it a little easier. But it's interesting to see the parallels between a character that we've created, like Walker and myself. There's this double-page spread in the book where I designed it kind of like a checkerboard pattern. So it's a checkerboard double-page spread, and in the white squares is Walker talking about his life and remembering, and then the black squares are empty. I had originally intended those black squares to kind of fill up Brian's dialogue, right? Figuring there would be a lot of, you know, he can be text heavy sometimes. And this was at a stage in the writing. Sometimes on Powers, I'm writing, I'll talk with Brian about the arc, and then kind of a reverse Marvel style, I'll draw it. I'll plot it out, I'll draw. Brian will then, he'll take the dialogue that I wrote, and he'll use the bits that he digs, but generally goes into his own direction, and sometimes can totally change the meaning of a scene, which I love. Like, it's amazing the way we can work like that. So anyway, when I originally intended to draw these pages, or this scene, it was that there's going to be all this dialogue, but Brian left a lot of those word balloons, or those areas for word balloons, blank. So Walker is there on this double page spread, and he's talking about his past and his life, and like there's this really cool imagery of Walker talking about not remembering his past and all these blank panels. And, you know, now they represent, instead of just being space for word balloons, they actually represent his lack of memory, like these blank spots in his life. And it's kind of freaking me out. It's like, holy shit, I feel the same way. You know, I look back on my earlier life, earlier as in just the early 2000s or so, and like there's a lot of it just feels like I wasn't there for. And maybe I wasn't, because I do tend to kind of retreat into my own mind. That's why I draw. So yeah, I'm gonna have to think more about that and what that means. But you know what, I dig that it's kind of reflecting in my work. You know, there's something satisfying about seeing what you write reflect it in your life, you know. Oh, that's weird. Yeah. So there's that. boy, when you draw by yourself like this and you record what you're saying and you don't have somebody else to talk to, I'm concentrating on the lines and then talking and kind of hearing the words come out of my mouth as you hear them. So there's this sort of weird therapy session, self-therapy session going on. And I apologize for that. I know you're not like tuning in to hear my inner thoughts. I mean, a little bit, but more about the inner thoughts of my brushwork and stuff. Sorry. We just live in weird times anymore, and fuck, I don't know. After doing a interview with my pal John Suntress for Word Balloon podcast a couple weeks ago, I looked into the program that he used to interview with me with a split screen and realized I can use that myself. So on this YouTube channel, I'm going to start interviewing some friends of mine about art. I'm not going to make it into like a, like a heavy interview channel at all. But from time to time, I think it's going to be fun. Right? Instead of me drawing, I'll be talking to some other artists. I was thinking of specifically of like artists who I love who do something specific that I love and talking to them about that one thing, making it a subject, Dave Johnson's pal of mine, he's one of the best cover artists out there, and there's so many different things that he does so well, from his design to just understanding how to tell a story in a single image for a cover, concept stuff. But one of the things that I love about what he does, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's something he might disagree with me on, but the way he does folds, it's a little abstract, but also very representative of what folds look like, but they're still a little abstract. But I love the way he does folds and clothes and like capes and stuff. So I like to talk to him about that. And just that. Just keep it simple. Oh, crap. Why is she wearing her t-shirt in bed? All right, fine. She's wearing a t-shirt. I don't know, would you guys be interested in that kind of stuff? Just interviewing friends, keep it short and simple. There's a lot of stuff like that to watch, mostly artists actually working and drawing and talking, which I absolutely love. I mean, it's some of my favorite things. But I also like these sort of interviews as well. Well, the long form interviews, which I'm probably not going to do, but like, one of my favorite channels is fuck me, I hate that line. One of my favorite channels is Cartoonist Kayfabe. And they do all kinds of stuff on there, reviewing other comics. People will we'll send them books and they'll review them, just flipping through them, whether they're reviewing them or just like checking out comics they've never seen or heard of before and commenting. I love it. I'll put a link down below. So drawing a little inspiration from them, because they also do these great interviews, but those are really long, like badass interviews. There's this manga series called Menben Documentaries, and they interview manga artists. Now, before you kind of tune out if you're not into manga, I'll tell you, I have a lot of respect for manga artists, but it's not a style that I really like engage in, or, I don't read too many manga comics, but my respect for these artists goes deep, especially when you just sit there and you watch what they do. And these Men documentaries do a great job at, they'll follow the artist around a little bit to tell you there's a host to the show, and it starts out with the host, and he talks about his comics, and then he'll talk about the artist that he's going to interview. Then we actually see the artist working over like a 24-hour period. Then the host does this really cool thing where they sit down with the artist and do a sort of almost like a blow-by-blow commentary, like a sports commentary. They watch the artist drawing, and like he'll ask him like, well, why did you switch to this pen? What were you thinking when you did this? Like an artist picking another artist's brain as they work. It's fucking great. It's so good. If I wanted to spend time making videos or producing stuff or whatever, I would totally go after that kind of format. I think it would be something people love. So highly recommend, even if you're not looking to be a manga artist or to use their styles or things or whatever, check out these Menben documentaries. I will link it below. Gonna let the brush get kind of thicker and looser and drier around here, just to show off her fabric. Boy, I never know what's going to happen in these videos when I start babbling. Next thing, I'm going to be telling you about my mother. This pillow in front of her. Blomp. Should be a lot more shadows on her and like her face, but you know, who wants to sketch with her face just completely covered? If you're actually buying a sketch, you know. So normally I would probably fill in this whole half of her face black. She does need shadow on her face, so this is going to help. This is sort of this fake secondary lighting that's bouncing up onto her just to help define her chin here. Now I'm just trying to find the form of her face. I mean, I know the form of her face, but I really want to accentuate just the right parts with the light. That's not quite right. Like, just feels weird, so let's... here. Now I'm going to completely black out her lip. It's a little wet over here, otherwise I'd get into like her nose and stuff. It's adding in some black here. I mean, it's largely done. All right, let's figure this out. I can kind of see it in my mind's eye. One of the most important things to me is before you start a piece, give yourself a good 30 seconds to just close your eyes and see it in your mind's eye. And the clearer picture you can see in your mind's eye, the stronger the piece is going to end up being. And I did that, but I did that more with the pose as opposed to the face here. Yeah, all right, I think that's all I needed. I also want to go back and spend some time just drawing eyes on a face again, to get back into the construction of eyes and faces to keep it more dimensional as opposed to, I mean, when you do a lot of construction on a face and eye, I mean, eye is not flat, you know, it's made of a series of sockets, really, and balls. And that's what gives it dimension and weight. And sometimes, because I've been doing this long enough, I can just draw it without really creating all the sort of construction lines. But you're not gonna be honest, you know, that's a slippery slope to being lazy and to it, you know, slowly chipping away at the quality of work. So I should spend more time on those basics. I find it's really smart to go back to the basics from time to time, because the more you know, the more rules you break. But just because you got to the place where you can break the rules doesn't mean that you always should, and it certainly doesn't mean that you're in the clear from bad habits just because you have experience. In fact, experience can create bad habits. I know it's done that to me sometimes. There have been times where I've rushed too much through inks on something, but I was kind of doing it on purpose, because there was also there was a time, and I still have it a little bit, which is put your time into the construction of the art of the drawing, whether it's, you know, the figure, the storytelling on the page. And then there's something about keeping the inks loose that adds like an energy to it, you know. No, unfortunately, while that mostly works, and I think it's really great, it can also, as you could imagine, lead up to some bad habits of the difference between keeping your inks loose and getting sloppy. You know, you want that energy. But you don't want to be sloppy. It's an interesting face she's making here, but I think it's probably too extreme, so there we go. I like this. She looks a little worried. So I'm gonna start erasing now, so that when I lay down my inks, I don't lighten up all the line work too much. Okie dokie. I'm gonna use a ruler here, because I'm gonna put some blinds back here. These blinds are relatively abstract because, you know, blinds are much smaller than this. Although maybe she has those kind of thicker bamboo blinds, I don't know. But what's more important isn't that this is real or accurate, but that it feels right. It feels true to the mood. So I want to be careful, because I accidentally lined this line up directly with her shirt. So that's this really shitty tangent that I don't want. So I'm going to move it up slightly. Now that's still going into there, so let's get rid of that line or forget about it. All right. Round one. Now I'm going to fill in black. Use this brush. And it's just cheap old, oh no, this is a Raphael Kalinsky. This is a decent brush. I used to be a heavy brush person. But obviously moving to digital, a lot less brush involved. And then there's all these really cool pens that are just easy to use. I'm going to switch over to time lapse for this. Hold on. All right, figured I'd spare you the pain of sitting through slowly filling in that black. But as I was, I also discovered something I thought you guys might enjoy. First, let me put my glove back on. I realized as I was filling in black, there was something interesting going on, which was these very long lines here, which might be more difficult now that there's a heavy amount of ink on the page. It's curled it up some, but I thought you'd enjoy watching a little challenge, how closely I can stay on the line here. Let's see if I can do it this way. It's a little harder because it's at an angle, but I'm trying to get the whole picture in the screen. Nah, almost got it. I want to go all the way across the page with it. Not so impressive now. It was a lot harder, or easier, I should say, actually, with when it was just a white page. It's harder to see the black over black. That's fairly straight. Now when I'm doing this, if you look closely, I'm not moving my hand very much, or my wrist. This is almost entirely in my shoulders, elbow, maybe torso a little bit. Kind of hard to explain, but I mean, kind of imagine my hand. I'm trying to keep my hand as still as possible, especially my fingers. I'm trying not to move or flex or anything. It's just keeping it perfectly still as I'm moving my actual arm straight down. Whoops. So again, this is just pretty much happening in the full arm, my shoulders. Weirdly not in the hand at all. Definitely not in the wrist. Let me show you what happens with the wrist. It tends to come back like this with you, which is why the wrist is really good for us, for like a curved line. Or if it's just a small area, it's fine. Oh, shit. The other thing I hate, fucking smears and stuff, like, that's why I wear the glove. Like, sometimes if it's a little wet, the glove will absorb it instead of smearing it. But it's another reason why I like digital, man. I just keep moving. I don't have to stop to dab the brush. I don't have to clean the brush. I don't have to change the brush head. I definitely don't have to worry about the smearing. I mean, all that said, though, I mean, there's nothing like a real brush. It's just way more time consuming. And And, you know, unfortunately with comics, especially if you're doing like mostly creator-owned comics, time and money collide. And yeah, I can't really just pamper every page with the time it takes for my brush and stuff, because I need to get work done and out in order to survive, make a living. And part of it's in my nature. So I just want to move fast, move on to the next idea. But I need to balance that with paying attention and quality and stuff. Anyway, this is basically done. Well, just trying to cover up that little smear with that. Let's put in some texture lines. And for these little dots and stuff, I'm going with the shape of the object. You know, when you look at like a how to draw a book, and they always start out with like figures, and they're all like these little circles and tubes and stuff. This is why. It's because it's about learning the shape and how to describe a shape in an object. Slide it down here. Oh, I really like this brush. I should use it more when I have time. There we go. Little Deena, what's that noise? Get my gun, go kill someone. Take care, guys.